Simply put, simple systems minimize downtime. So, what we're trying to optimize for is the system to be functioning correctly as often as possible. If you think about this like a assembly line on a factory floor, right? That's a very easy example because you're going from raw materials at one end to finished goods at the other, trying to minimize the number of things that could cause the whole assembly line to stop. So if the simpler we keep things, the more failure modes we remove, right? The more scenarios that allow for the system to function as it should, where the input makes it through all of the linear composite steps to the other side. And again, because we're optimizing for long term compounding, it becomes really costly for systems to fall off completely because we have to kind of restart and rebuild. So this is just a general rule of thumb in everything is just to like instead of be adding on, building, is just to like strip away all the things that are unnecessary. I like this analogy of when you're writing, you send it to someone to get feedback and you say, "Hey, what are the parts that you found most interesting? Like, what do you want to hear more about?" And they're going to tell you about 20% of the piece. And then you literally strip away the other 80% and then take the 20% and make it the 100%. And that's the approach that I recommend everyone to recommend is like, hey, you're doing a weekly review, or you're doing your planning in the morning, or you're doing your exercises, your stretches, or you have a process for hiring or for going on a podcast, all this type of stuff, is to just take the most effective 20% and zoom in on that because that's the part that's showing so much return. I bet you could find even more return if you zoom in on that. So that's where we talked about, hey, what's the thing that people find most surprising about me and my systems? Because I like to think I try to do everything systematically, which is just a way of saying I'm constantly iterating and looking for ways that things that I'm doing could be made easier, streamlined, made, the process become better, is that everything is really stripped down and simple. And it's not that I'm simple or I don't know how to do all of the really complicated, super complex ways, but I found that a lot of the aspects of the complicated, complex system just wasn't showing the return necessary for the maintenance to keep that part of the system running. So I just took that step out of the assembly line and said, hey, that's useful, but it's not useful enough to keep having to go in there and repair that step. So let's simplify. And that's what I think is really powerful is like continuing to strip down and simplify. And that's a really key lesson in systems is things automatically improve over time with iteration if you keep things moving, keep things working. So if you can solve for that, like the system will optimize itself, but don't try to optimize it up front because you're going to optimize the wrong parts.